Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the channel. We got mostly a lot of follow-up stuff today. Some of these stories have started to develop. Not that we believe all the details of these stories, but it's good to talk about what the programming is and why these stories are aired, why they are communicated out to the rest of the populace, and how it is steering people towards a certain direction. And that's why we look at these headline stories, because it gives you a snapshot into what is going on with the agenda. And if we ignore these stories, then we're ignoring the programming that they're programming everyone else for. And then we get blindsided, right? A couple of you were talking to me about people who you've tried to share information with, and they'll literally have a negative reaction. They'll freak out on you. Well, that's because of the programming. So if we don't know how these people are being programmed, then we are going to be blindsided. We will have no clue as to how to interact with these people and how to reach them on some level. Sometimes it's gradually, sometimes it's asking simple questions. But the second that they apply a label to you, this is where you're getting that reaction, because they are programmed to react that way to the label that they've applied to you. I hope that makes sense to some of you, because I know that a lot of people get frustrated. They're like, why do you do headlines? I'm like, well, this is the program. This is what everyone else around you is being programmed to believe and do. So we have to look at this stuff. If we don't look at it, then we're blindsided. So we have a lot of stories to follow up on. We've got the DC plane crash. Actually, it was in Virginia, but they flew over DC. We're getting some more clues as to who was on it. And then, of course, Arnold puts his foot in his mouth once again. So we're going to talk about them as he talks about his Yahtzee father. And we're going to talk about his track record when it comes to that topic in the Terminator movies, because there's a direct link and connection and metaphor to what the Yahtzees did in the Terminator franchise. We've touched on that before, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper today. I'm going to show you the T4 extermination program in Yahtzee, Germany, and how that was named after the Terminator 4 film, T4. So we're going to break all that down. And then we're going to also look at Tesla working on a robot helper. I mean, you guys, it's right in our faces now. They're literally talking about a robot helper for your family to drive you around, pick up your groceries. And make no mistake, as soon as these things start walking around, they will be the new minority group. And maybe that's what all of this minority thing was all about from the beginning. Maybe, just maybe, they were normalizing us to the idea that artificial intelligence will be a minority group. A group of robots that will be given rights, even though they're inanimate objects and not real. This is where all the programming has been headed over all of the years that we've been decoding these robot films, starting with films like I, Robot, and then one we just did recently where a woman had a robot clone of her husband. This is where the programming is headed. It's sympathy for the devil. They want you to have sympathy for the artificial intelligence. And it will probably be the last minority group. And this is why they've created and pushed these other minority groups. They tied it into first black minorities, and then they've weaponized it into other minority groups. And it's getting more and more silly, these minority groups are coming up with, right? And then by the end of it, you'll be normalized to accept the last minority group, and that will be the robots. I honestly feel like this is where everything's headed, you guys. So, now, I don't really have much for you guys on the Honey Milk Ranch today, but I will tell you, I conceptualized a new project. I have a flat bed twin mattress that goes onto like a short frame with no headboard. And I was like, what can I do with this And I decided to go ahead and make a sofa out of it. So I've got these 4x4 red oak posts, and some of them are already cut into lengths that would be about what I would need to make a little sofa around this bed. Now it won't be attached to the bed because the bed stands alone, but what I want to do is I've already drawn up plans for this thing. I ordered some varnish. I've got varnish. I've got L brackets. I know exactly how this thing is going to go together. So the cool thing is it will be like a sofa and then a pull-out bed with very little effort. You just slide the bed out away from the rest of the sofa. That's my idea. So that will be our next project. I'm going to try to do a good job on it. I'm going to sand it. I'm going to try to involve you guys in the whole process because I think that this idea, because I looked this up online, no one else has come up with this. No one else has been able to conceptualize this, at least with the Google search results that I've looked for, to actually build a piece of furniture around a flat bed, twin mattress bed that's sitting up off the floor. So this will be a really fun project, and it'll be something that other people can try if they want to. And all the parts and including the varnish was less than $50. Screws, L brackets, and varnish. So, and I already had the wood, of course. So a lot of people won't have the wood, but if you have leftover wood that kind of lines up with the wood that I'm going to show you in this project next week, then this will be something you'll be able to do. Anyway, what color says Ampavo? Well, it's going to be, I'm going to put a polyurethane varnish on it. Well, let's see, what is it? It's an oil-based polyurethane is what the technical name of it is. And I'll sand the oak because it's red oak. It's beautiful wood. And I'm going to sand it first and then apply that, and it'll make it pop. It'll look like a hardwood floor or something. So I'm excited to do that. Now that I did these stairs, I'm really excited about trying new things. Like, wow, I actually built 2 sets of stairs. Like, I never in my life thought I would be able to do that. I was intimidated. And as you see, they turned out great. They're not perfect, but they turned out great. And what better way to help empower people and help show them? Jesus said, teach a man to fish. Don't give him a fish. Teach him to fish. And even though this stuff can be really intimidating, hey, if I can do it, I'm not that smart of a person. God has gifted me with certain gifts, but I'm not like the kind of person that works really well with my hands. I'm just kind of your average guy. And if I stop and slow down and I'm not intimidated by the project, and I go step by step and I have faith, hey, that if other people have done it, I can do it. And if I screw up, who cares, right? And so hopefully this will empower other people to try stuff like this. Now, I look at this, I take this very seriously, what we do here on YouTube, okay? Because part of what I do here is to help you guys understand the reality that we live in, to make sense of it, so you don't feel so lost, so you don't feel so powerless, so that you understand and see God's plan working behind the scenes as we enter into these end times, right? And the same applies to how you live your life. It's not just about, seeing through the matrix. It's also about how the nuts and bolts of your life are put together. The things in your life that you've built, okay? Preparation. This is why the other aspect of our channel is so important, the Honey Milk Ranch, because this is teaching you actually how to live. Because you can't, what the Bible says, you cannot live on bread alone. Okay, so and I don't know if that applies to the context of what I'm saying here, but your life involves how you're going to live as well. It's not just about the spiritual aspects. You also have to live in this world, even though you're not of it. So this is very important to me, this new aspect of the channel and sharing all these things with you. We've done bits and pieces of it over the years. Like when I was in France, I tried to show you guys some stuff, and everybody probably remembers the bed that I tried to make in France. That was a fail. I tried to make a bed. I had a wood saw and everything out there, but I think I've gotten a little bit better at it. I don't know if it's my age or what, but maybe it's my patience. Maybe it's that I'm out here. But interestingly, my wood projects have gotten a lot better. Many of you will also remember the chicken box I tried to make, and that was a big fail too when I was in France. And remember, I put the insulation inside the box, and you guys are like, what are you doing? You can't put insulation in a chicken box. Chickens don't like that. It's going to make them itchy. So we've come a long way, haven't we? And it's kind of interesting to look back in retrospect, backwards and forwards, and the huge difference in how we've all grown. All of us have grown, not just me. Yeah, I remember the tomato fail, Emma mash. All my tomatoes turned to mold, and they were just green, and I had to eat fried green tomatoes, and I was doing fried green tomato recipes. If you haven't watched the France videos, it's definitely a treat. And for those of you that are always asking me to go on camera, there are several videos of me on camera in France, and that was like 4 years ago, so you guys can check that out as well. I get camera shy, I guess is the word for it. This is why on this ranch here, I don't really get on the camera. I mean, you can see my arms and legs, but I get nervous when I get in front of a camera. And this is why I never got into music, because in terms of performance, I'm an okay guitar player. I would call it like bootleg guitar playing. So I like to just rip chords and stuff on my acoustic. But as soon as a camera is pointed at me, I forget how to play the guitar. And so that's how I know I'm camera shy, right? Like, what do they call it? Stage fright or whatever. And I don't know, that's just something God put in me, that now I know there's other people that love being on camera. They've got the camera pointed at them, and they're doing the gesticulations, and and they look great on camera. But for me, I'm just not a fan of being on camera. So that's a little bit about an update on all that. Let's get into some of these headlines now. This is crazy. Everybody remembers the story we've been following. This private jet crashed in Virginia and included a top shelf pilot, single mom who was adopted at age 40, her daughter, her 2-year-old daughter, and the nanny. Now, this is a sad story, but we're going to break this down a little bit because something is not right. Something is wrong with this story, right? Now, who was on this flight? Well, it was this woman here. Let's see if there's a picture of her. Here she is. And her 2-year-old daughter. Look how sad this is. Now, these people had boatloads of money. Obviously, they were flying on a private jet. But I'm a firm believer that some of the people connected to some of these people have no idea what's going on. They're just drawn into these lives, right? They have no idea what's going on. And they become victims of these people's drama and their control and their demonic possession. And so who was on this plane was Adina Azarian, 49 years old. She was a well-known luxury real estate broker in New York. She had a 2-year-old daughter, Aria. They were killed in the crash. And her father, who adopted her, was not on the plane, but he was the one who owned the plane. And that guy's name is Rumpel. And yet the other day we were saying like Rumpelstiltskin, right? Now, what did Rumpelstiltskin do in that story? Did he like lie or something? No, that was Pinocchio. Rumpelstiltskin, though, he was not a good guy, was he? He was like tricky. He was like a trickster, wasn't he? Anyway, I don't know how that fits into this story, but interestingly, what they're saying happened was the fighter jets were scrambled. They pulled up next to this plane that had gone off course and was flying over DC. And they looked inside the cockpit, and they said that they saw the pilot slumped over. This is the official story, you guys. And they are saying that this was due to the loss of cabin pressure. Now, interestingly, this particular guy who owned the plane was a huge donor to the Trump campaign. Upwards of $250,000 over the course of several years that he's given to the Trump campaign. And so you have to wonder what the connection is here. I tend to believe that stories like this can tend to try to legitimize Trump. They need to rile up the right. They need the right to feel like they're under attack by the left. So stories like this go out. We don't even know if this story is true. But here's the thing that I caught. They're saying here, while the cause of the crash remains under investigation, experts theorize that the plane could have lost pressurization in the cabin, causing those inside to pass out. Now, I can tell you this. If I had a private jet and my family was on it, I would give them a crash course in flight training. No pun intended with the crash course part. But there are about 5 things you could probably tell someone to do that would save their life in the case of a pilot passing out. Because pilots have heart attacks, don't they? And on these small jets, there is no co-pilot. So someone else on the jet needs to kind of act as the co-pilot, don't they, in case something goes wrong. Now, if you were to do this, you would definitely keep it simple, but you would tell them exactly what to do if the pilot passed out. And that could be as simple as teaching them how to radio someone who could help them land the plane through the radio. It could be as simple as showing them how to at least keep the plane in the air and on a steady course and away from crashing into mountains and buildings until they could get that help to talk them through how to land the plane. I mean, we've all seen the movies, right? I don't know if it's that simple. I've never flown a jet or a plane before, but this is what I would be doing. Now, this is a horrific story. I mean, can you imagine the fear? The pilot passes out and the plane is basically barreling through the sky at however many hundreds of miles an hour. And what do you do? Now, I'm a little bit suspicious about this story, and I'll tell you why. Because what the story doesn't say is if the fighter pilots saw the family slumped over in the rear windows of the plane. Because all planes have windows, right? So the rear windows, they should have been able to look inside and see what was going on in there. Since they didn't mention that, and I'm sure they looked, it sounds as if the entire plane, everybody on the plane passed out. Now, for those of you that know about safety regulations, your mind's churning right now. Let's see who gets it first. Why does this story sound suspicious about them all passing out because they did not have oxygen and the cabin lost pressure? Why does this sound suspicious to you? Thanks to the new channel member, Lady Da. Thank you. Why does this sound suspicious to you guys? Let's see who gets it first. Now, we're also going to talk about the Trump indictment because that's all of a sudden breaking news as well. He definitely should have locked her up. I mean, and we're going to talk about the ridiculousness of this whole drama toward the end of the show. Why does it sound? Why? Yes, premium mail got it. Masks. Where were the masks? So I looked this up because I didn't know. I wasn't sure if it was mandatory for everybody to have their masks on or have the plane be equipped with oxygen masks. So I looked it up, and guess what? Short answer. Air regulations and law demand that oxygen be available to crew and passengers traveling above 10,000 feet in all cases. Pressurized cabins that lose pressure will subject any life to symptoms of hypoxia. So this jet and this guy with all this money with his family on this jet would have had oxygen masks, or should have. Now, if I'm wrong about that and this is not good information, please let me know in the chat. But last I checked, and based on my research, there should have been masks, oxygen masks in the plane. So why did everybody pass out if there were oxygen masks? The oxygen masks that fall, yes, I almost thought it said oxygen masks that fail, which is kind of, related to the masks that failed during the pandemic, right? So this is very suspicious, and the news story leaves out some of this information, so we really don't know. They don't talk about oxygen masks deploying. It's missing information from the story. So we will follow this story and see what's going on with it. But it sounds like some kind of foul play to me. Now, this next story is creepy. We've done a lot of shows on these robots with artificial intelligence. In fact, there was just a movie that we just did. We decoded about a woman whose husband dies, and she has a robot all ready to download his consciousness into. But then if something isn't right, and she decides she doesn't want him anymore. But by that time, the whole world releases the programming of these robots and their limitations, and they end up murdering humans. We just decoded that, and we've been talking a lot about these robots, but here's what Tesla wants to do. Let's read this. They want to basically create an army of robot assistants for humans. They're calling these Optimus robots, kind of like the Gobots. And they want to fuse self-driving technology with mind-blowing human-like capabilities. Let's read this. Let's see if there's a... Hold on. Let's refresh this and see if there's a video with this, because that would be helpful, right? Okay, let's listen to this guy.
Receive money via Venmo. How safe really is that app?
What is this?
I'm for the cyber guy, and all my tech hacks.
Is this a commercial? Hold on. Sorry, guys. Oh, boy. What is this guy saying? He's talking about Venmo. Has nothing to do with the story. Okay, sorry, that was a fail. Let's just read this. Have you ever imagined what it would be like if a robot could run your errands, do your chores, and maybe even become an extension of you? Yeah, because we've been programmed to think about that, haven't we? With these movies. Well, don't put away your popcorn just yet, because Tesla's new Optimus robot could transform your... No, just kidding. Could bring us one step closer to our sci-fi fantasy. Look at these creepy looking things. What the heck? Why would you put like a black head on them like that? This is like a robot army or something. Like there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Let's keep reading here. Remember Surrogates, the 2009 movie where everyone lounged at home, living their lives through a better looking, risk-taking robot version of themselves? Now, I'm not guessing we're quite there yet. However, the arrival of Tesla's Optimus does make you ponder if we are indeed tiptoeing toward such a reality. It's not quite a surrogate yet, although with its ability to take on household chores and errands, Optimus is undoubtedly pointing us in that direction. So, again, what have we been talking about? Doppelgangers, twinning, the whole avatar thing. Tesla's Optimus is a marvel of artificial intelligence designed to carry out tasks that humans may find risky, tedious, or simply boring. Picture this. While you're at home sipping on your favorite brew, Optimus is outmaneuvering supermarket aisles, hauling groceries, or perhaps fixing a leaky faucet at home. So they basically want to create an army of slaves. Artificial intelligence slaves. To be fair, we've had a taste of advanced robotics before. Boston Dynamics has led the charge with the likes of Spot and Atlas. These robots can navigate treacherous terrains, inspect hazardous sites, and even bust out a backflip or two. By the time this is all said and done, they're going to create these robots, and then they're going to say that they put them on Mars. All right. And they're going to say that you can get into this suit and you could actually be walking on Mars. Because when you're walking here, it sends a signal and it controls the robot 5 billion trillion miles away in real time. Why? Because we developed 10G technology. This is how bad these people lie. And then people will stand in line and pay tens of thousands of dollars to quote unquote walk on Mars. I think that's where all this is headed. I know I have an imagination, but this is what I think's happening here. Now, I'll put a link to this story. I'm not going to read the rest of the story because it's just silly. But let's get into Arnold. Because Arnold is at it again. bringing up his Yahtzee father and trying to distance himself from his father. Well, we're going to see what he has to say here. And then we're going to look at a particular franchise that Arnold was involved in. The one that made him famous, Terminator. And I'm going to prove to you that certain aspects of the Terminator story was a metaphor for the Yahtzee clones. Let's read this first. Arnold Schwarzenegger says his Yahtzee father was a tyrant who physically and mentally abused him and his brother, which may have caused his sibling's death. What is it with recycling these people from the past? You know, they did this with Michael Jordan. Reminds me of Michael Jordan sitting in a chair telling all his war stories about the NBA, right? For which he garnered a lot of hate from his own teammates for the way he depicted them and portrayed himself. And now we have Arnold doing the same thing. Like, what's up with this? Now people watch this stuff. Let's listen to what Arnold has to say here. Let me check in with you guys and we'll take a look at this. It's Friday. I hope you guys are having fun because I love Fridays. Okay, let's take a look here. Let's see this. Arnold. Maria. Okay, you guys ready? Do you guys know what Yahtzee means? It's a game, right? You take the dice and you put them in a little thing and we all know what it is. Okay, let's keep going with this. Arnold Schwarzenegger has opened up about the abuse he suffered as a child at the hands of his tyrant Yahtzee father, which he believes was a driving factor behind his huge success, but also led his brother to an early grave. The Terminator star is the subject of a new 3-part Netflix docuseries titled Arnold, which chronicles the Austrian's native journey from athlete to actor and American politician. In the first episode, Schwarzenegger recalled the tough childhood he and his older sibling, Meinhard, experienced growing up in the Austrian village of Thal. The actor was born in just 2 years. He had a brother named Meinhard. Okay, sorry. He served as a member of the Yahtzee paramilitary wing, Sturmbataillon, and was involved in the invasion of Leningrad. Came home from a war suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome. Speaking to the camera, the former bodybuilding champion said, "He was buried underneath buildings, rubble for days." That was lame. And on top of that, they lost the war. They went home so depressed. Austria was a country of broken men. Okay. Describing his father as a tyrant and very tough police officers, Schwarzenegger recalled how he would make him and his brother earn breakfast and make them compete against each other. So, why are we talking about Arnold and my terrible impersonation of him? Well, many of you will remember a particular part of the Terminator series called Terminator Salvation. And in the plot of Terminator Salvation, there was a factory full of Terminator clones. And John Connor, at the end, goes to rescue a bunch of people from this factory. And all these Arnolds come out of the factory and start attacking John Connor. But then John is able to basically exterminate all the clones. And I believe that the clone army was a metaphor for the SS clone army hunting down the Juice Club. Extermination in reverse, right? Now, look at the date of the release of this Terminator film. Here it is right here. This is Terminator Salvation. Now, they actually released this on May 21st. And interestingly, this date is an anniversary date for a particular action that happened that was portrayed by the Yahtzees called Action T4. It was actually a particular region in Poland at a hospital called Zelle. Here's the name of the hospital there. And that is what began the extermination on May 21st, the same date, of almost 2,000 people. Now, these are just claims. These are historical claims. I'm not saying all this is true. But look at this. Another name for Terminator 4, and many of you will remember this, they shortened it to T4. Well, I looked that up, and there's a direct connection to Action T4, which was an extermination program. Action T4. So it's essentially the same name. And one of the actions took place on the same date that the film came out. So we have a connection here, right? Now, what was Action T4? Well, it was an extermination program. Weird, right? Now, we had exposed and uncovered this long time ago. But, Arnold keeps bringing up, these things. He's trying to distance himself from this. Action T4, a campaign of mass murder by involuntary euthanasia by Nazi Germany. The term was first used in post-war trials against doctors who had been involved in the killings. The name T4 is an abbreviation of Tiergartenstraße 4, a street address of the Chancellery Department set up in early 1940 in Berlin, in a Berlin borough called Tiergarten, which recruited and paid personnel associated with Action T4. So, weird, isn't it? Now, there were other connections to this program in the film. You'll have to go back and look at that decode that we did on Terminator 4. But, wow, right? Now, these people know this. They won't come out and say it, that they shortened this to T4 and it was about a robot clone army that got destroyed and exterminated. They won't tell you that. But this is all subliminal programming, is what it is. This is why I have to tell you so that you know what's going on. Now, what else is going on? Well, I picked up my shotgun, as I told you guys, and I started going online to look for ammo. And guess what? You can't Google shop for ammo. Did you guys know this? Let me go back in the chat. I know some of you are gun people. You can't Google shop for ammo. I was in shock. I was like, are you serious? I'm like, am I doing something wrong here? I mean, they completely wipe out every single result. You can Google shop for everything else. You can Google shop for, crotchless underwear if you wanted to. But you can't Google search for ammo. There's something wrong in plain sight. Did you guys know this? Let's see if anybody has heard of this before. Now, it doesn't mean you can't go to specific websites to find ammo that you can then go on that website and order it, have it shipped to your house, or pick it up somewhere. But you can't go and Google shop ammo like you can every single thing else in the world. It's nuts. So I looked into this. I was like, what is this about? I mean, this is a direct reference to, or direct impedance of your Second Amendment right, isn't it? To make it harder for you to observe your Second Amendment right to bear arms. Google bans weapon-related listings from Google Shopping. Apparently, this happened all the way back in 2012. Google has begun notifying merchants that it won't allow them to continue to list weapons-related items for sale in Google Shopping. Searches in Google Shopping for things like pistol grip, Shogun, and goon scopes, shoe gun sales. I'm changing the way I'm saying this here because I'm not sure how the algorithms react to this, but all the way back in 2012, this is what they were already doing. So this gives you a snapshot into where the world is headed. It starts with little things like this, and then it snowballs into something completely different. I already shared with you yesterday about my experience picking up the Shogun and the background check that I had to endure. Sitting there sweating bullets knowing that some bureaucrat proctologist is digging into your past, looking at your entire record. That was weird. There was a person that came into the comments section yesterday, you can go back and look at this, and they said they worked for, I don't know if this is true or not, but they gave a whole explanation as to what a background check was and said they were the ones who approved background checks for guns. I was like, really? And they gave like a 5-paragraph answer, which sounded really interesting, but they were basically trying to put me at ease about the process and said that the process is completely detached from your YouTube channel. That would not become a factor in you being approved or not approved for a firearm. And all the jargon and lingo sounded like this person was really telling the truth, but it was just weird. I got this creepy feeling like the guy who said the towers fell due to intense heat because the steel beams were melted and it fell in its own footprint. And he said that like 20 minutes after the first tower fell, and they found this random guy on the street walking around that just happened to know all this information. I kind of got that feeling about it. And I was like, don't give me that line, is what I told the guy. I said, look, I know that people are on lists. The NSA is looking at people. Okay? They're going to look at any person who does not believe that governments are legitimate. You're going to go on a list. I don't care what you say. It's a blacklist. You're not even allowed to talk to me about it. And I know this because I talked to my internet company because my internet was weirdly going out. And they said there was a blacklist. And I hope I don't get that person in trouble. But they said, yes, we have a list of our customers that go on a blacklist. And the government can hit a button, which sends us a signal. We hit a button. We have to turn off their internet. So I know this is true. So the person that came into the comments, I'm not sure if I believe what they were telling me. So that's what's going on. And, if they decide they don't want to sell you a firearm, there's nothing you can do about it because you have no recourse. You just get a no answer. Now, if this has happened to anybody, please let me know. But the more influence you gain in this world, I know we're still a pretty small channel, but the more influence you gain in this world, the more that you get technologically targeted. Now, your influence could be spiritual. You might not have a huge social media following, but you could be a spiritual presence in God's kingdom on this planet. And God could be using you for key things that he wants to do. And this could even be as simple as maybe the child that you have could become a key influence in the future of the end times. Okay, we never know what our spiritual role is until usually after the fact. Usually hindsight, we begin to clearly see our spiritual role because we're walking in faith up to that point, aren't we? We're walking in faith knowing that God is using us for the kingdom because we're not working for the enemy. And so it doesn't matter how big your social media footprint is because the least of us is the greatest and the greatest is the least, isn't it? Isn't that how it goes? But sometimes those of us that stay faithful, who do accumulate an influence in this plane, we can be messed with. The higher you go, the higher you go. Everybody agrees we've been fighting tooth and nail to be more relevant so that we can reach more people, putting in the most work of research and daily shows. And it's like everyone can see the palpable suppression of the channel after doing this for 10 years. The boot in the back of the net. Unsubscribing people that come to the show every single day. Probably half of you have been kicked off of my subscriber list by YouTube, and you tell us that. And it's every once in a while, it's good to remind everybody of that, to know that that's exactly what's happening. We've seen our live shows go up to 1,000 views, and as soon as we hit that, boom, boot in the back of the neck, and half of our people drop off. And we keep at it, don't we? Because we're not here for notoriety. We're here to spread the word to as many people as possible and give all the glory to God and try to find ways to help people to get out of this beast system, because some of you are stuck where you're at. So, interesting, right? Now, let's get into some of this other stuff here. What else do we have here? Oh, now, everybody's heard that Trump is probably wishing that he would have locked Hillary up at this point, because he's, according to what they want us to believe, has just been indicted on a classified documents case. Now, this is him saying this. I'm sure the media will spin this again and say, oh, he's lying. Or, they love this give and take. They love the chaos magic. Remember the first time? And they were like, oh, that's not true. And then now all of a sudden a whole completely different set of circumstances. And now they're saying, or he's saying, that he's going to be indicted. Now understand, this is all smoke and mirrors. Okay. This is a theater sideshow to strengthen Trump's base. I still honestly believe that. This actually boosts his legitimacy on the right. And I'm sure that donations are probably going through the roof right now. People feeling sorry for him. Just like after the Crapper Hole event, they said it was curtains for him. It's over. He's going to lose all his sponsors and all his business deals. That didn't happen. He's richer than ever. And the media still talks about him. And I truly believe that despite all of this, he will still be our next president. So where is the proof that all this is theater? What proof do we have? Well, because Trump could have did the same thing to Hillary and the left when he was the president. He had the full force of his base behind him, didn't he? He had far more proof of the misdealings of the left, didn't he? And instead of locking her up, even though he had the power behind him, the wind at his back, he chose not to. And that's how you know all this is fake. Because if Trump thought that the left was truly a threat, he would have did exactly what they're doing to him now, wouldn't he have? But he didn't. And it wasn't because he was trying to reach across the aisle either. Trump never pulled any punches when it came to how he felt about the left. He dogged them and made fun of them as they did so back to him as well. At every turn, he never tried to reach across the aisle. He stood his ground, and that was his legacy. So, why didn't he lock her up and a bunch of people on the left, which is what Q was telling us was going to happen, right? They're all in Guantanamo. They're all locked up. It's the clones that are walking around. It's not even really them. But yet here we are. Right? So, now, in what seems to be a strange twist of events, the left is going after him. Or so they want us to believe. And all this is going to do is strengthen the divide. I don't believe any of this is real. I still don't think he's going to do jail time. He's not going to lose his riches. And he will become our next president. Only time will tell. But let's read about exactly what happened. Former President Donald Trump announced on Thursday evening that his attorneys had been informed that he had been indicted by federal government for alleged crimes stemming from his handling of classified documents after leaving the White House in early 2021. Now, this is out of the Trump camp. This is not from the officials that indicted him. So this is already getting a little bit suspicious here. The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted, seemingly over the boxes hoax. Trump wrote on a social media website, Truth Social, adding, I have been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. I never thought it would be possible that such a thing could happen to a former president of the United States. So this is what's happening. He's making this claim, and the Justice Department isn't saying anything. There were plenty of signs over the past few weeks that Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into Trump's handling of the documents was reaching its conclusion. In the last few days, Trump received a letter by Smith's office informing him that he was a target of a criminal investigation. Now, why is this story so important? Well, because the people on the right will say, Hillary had all those documents too and the emails and she didn't get in trouble. Well, who should have locked her up for that? If we know all of this is true, but who should have locked her up? It would have been Trump. So this garners sympathy for him, doesn't it? But if people really think about it, they'll say, well, had you locked her up, you wouldn't be dealing with this right now, would you? Or at least we'd have one win in the bag with her locked up, even if you get locked up. It's a draw. So this is WWF wrestling controversy. That's what this is, in my opinion, anyway. Again, we'll have to see how all this shakes out in the coming weeks and days. Now, I want to finish up today's show with a follow-up on the mother who got killed through the door case. Apparently, new information has emerged, so I'll cover that story. Then I'll be back in the chat with you guys, and we can talk a little bit about it. Apparently, the white woman is now admitting that she used racial slurs against the children. And she's saying that this happened after they and their mother, the one that got killed, threatened her life. These are the claims. It's really hard to say who's telling the truth here. So you have to take these testimonies at a grain of salt, because this lady could be lying about her life being threatened, but also she could not be lying about it. So let's see what's going on with this. So this is the woman that got got shot through the door. Apparently this was an ongoing feud. And the police were called several times before this. And so there was a failure in policing here, because obviously the situation escalated. Someone should have been ticketed or warned. If there were racial slurs going on, the police should have taken that seriously. And there should have been some documentation, because then it becomes a hate crime, doesn't it? If this was done in conjunction with racial slurs. Now, the white woman here is claiming that because of this ongoing feud, that she actually had to buy a gun for protection. She actually, or this is her testimony, that she felt in fear for her life. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. It doesn't affect me one way or the other if someone were to call me the N-word. I'll tell you that right now, straight up. Because who gets the last laugh? I don't care how someone feels about me. Now, is that good Christian values to use that word against somebody? No, it's not. Your salvation might be at risk if you hate your brother because of their skin color, right? But that doesn't affect me one way or the other. In my opinion, that's not racism, okay? Racism is when a person can affect your livelihood, when they deny you service, when they say you can't come into my restaurant, or they treat you differently, like not giving you a loan on a house, or they don't, or they, something like that. But if someone has an opinion about my skin color, or they choose to not be around me, that's their opinion. That's no different than a white person that maybe only dates redheaded people, right? Is that racism? No, it's not. Maybe someone has an aversion to dating certain people of certain colors, or they have an aversion to people with small feet or short men. Okay? To me, that's not racism. Now, have I ever experienced true racism? No, I have not. This is why I tell people that. I've probably only heard the N-word used in my presence once in my entire life. Once or twice. And the context of it wasn't even a negative context. It was just somebody slip of the tongue, right? That stuff doesn't bother me, okay? But it bothers a lot of people of color when that word is used. Very sensitive to it, okay? Now, what else is going on with this story? Well, it's really hard to tell who started this whole thing. The white woman is saying she was not respected by the children. This is interesting because this is a topic we brought up yesterday about children and respect for adults. Remember we talked about this? Well, now it has emerged as a facet of this story. The white woman is saying that the children of the neighborhood did not respect her. Now, that's not a reason to shoot someone or throw a skate at them, which is what the children say she did. She threw a roller skate at them. Definitely not a reason to do that, but it is definitely a factor of the case and the escalation of how all this happened. All right. Now, obviously, at some point, this thing did become racial. White woman sounded like she was frustrated, and she started dropping off N-bombs, saying she called them slaves and all this other stuff. And she actually admitted to some of this. So there's no speculation there. So this is crazy. Now, as I said yesterday, in yesterday's show, before we had all the facts of this case or the testimonies, in fact, the white woman is saying that the mother was behind the door saying she was going to kill her. She said that the door was going to come off. This is what she believed. And so, obviously, this thing had escalated into a series of unfortunate events, ending in the death of the mother, who probably had no idea there was a gun behind the door or that someone would actually kill her through a door. But you notice all this fear. Fear on both sides. So, this woman got indicted for murder, manslaughter, I guess. And the police are saying the stand your ground did not apply to this woman. Look at all the comments. Wow, 7,488 comments. Oh boy. I'm sure there's a field day going on down in that comment section. All right, you guys, let's pop back in here. Good morning, everybody. Hang out with you guys for a little bit before we pop off of here. Yeah, it was an escalating feud. It was basically a family feud, like the neighbors going at it. And if the police were called out there 6 times, something should have happened. Someone should have, like a cooling down period. I don't know. Maybe the neighborhood should have been patrolled. Maybe the cop should have talked to the white lady and asked her, why do you have a problem with these children playing over there? What's the problem? And the lady saying she wasn't getting any sleep and the children were making a lot of noise. So if the children were making that much noise, why didn't the police do a noise thing? If there was some kind of noise ordinance. You see the problem here? Maybe the mother could have been ticketed for them making too much noise. So there's a lot of things that could have happened. I know this is armchair quarterbacking. I get that. And that's not my intent here, but I want to break these situations down so they don't get to this point where someone loses their life. Okay? So, all right. Okay. Well, we don't know if the kids were bad. Now, one of the kids said that he felt like it was his fault that he lost his mother. So there was some kind of admission of something that happened. So, all right. Some of you are going to pop off here. Thanks, Karen, for showing up. Thanks, everybody. L.A. Rain, Yabba Dabba, Marcy, Thomasina, Rebecca, Better Karma, Troy. I thought about that. Troy says, live next to a 5G tower, ? People are coming unglued. They're coming unhinged, aren't they? And you have to wonder what is causing this. What could be causing people to go into zombie mode and do crazy stuff like this? I guess that remains to be seen. I mean, I have my theories on it. All these different factors, frequencies, injections, all these things. But it's just crazy. Anyway, can you look into the final episode of Manifest? Oh, they just released Manifest. Thanks for that, Zam Goods. I'll look into that. I've been putting that on hold because they had put a big gap in between that season. So they released the second part of the season. So I'll definitely pull that up and take another look at it. Yeah, Manifest had tarot cards too, didn't it? Oh boy. Now we don't read tarot cards here. We examine how the enemy is using the tarot cards for their sorcery. Okay. So. All right, you guys. I'll let you guys enjoy your weekend. We might be back on here Sunday. If not, Monday for sure. I love each and every one of you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Take care and be safe.